So you are looking at your rights situation with your digital asset management system, and you've had some, obviously now, I know from the poll, you've had some questions about rights for assets, and you manage the digital asset management system. How can looking at managing rights information help you? Well, obviously, first off, it facilitates reuse of assets by your organization. And that is something that your organization may be small and they may only be using assets internally. An HR department may put out different informational videos, or they may put out a monthly newsletter, but they start to want to reuse like photos from a company picnic, or some little poem that an employee wrote a long time ago, or some photo that was on a wall in a historic old building that your company owns. And all of these things come together, and these assets are all over the place, and the information's all over the place. But now people want to take a look at them, they want to reuse them. And another way that managing rights information helps is tracking expiration of assets. And I have a calendar there as the illustration. But in actual fact, expiration of assets involves a lot more than just calendar terms. So if you have third-party assets, when the term of those assets has expired, you may, as I have found at some video and media archives that I've been at, and at museums, you may have to physically return the assets. So it's not just that the asset ability to use the asset expires, but the asset has to be physically returned, and there are sometimes specifications about that. So, for instance, I worked at a museum where it was just launching in Chicago, and various media people had given, I don't know, costumes from some Chicago show that they appeared in, or a puppet that they had been part of in an early children's show in like the 1950s, things like that. But they wanted these things back after a period of time. They wanted to contribute to the museum launching, but they wanted their assets back. So this does make a big difference with on small scale and large scale situations with assets, and especially because in some situations with media assets, by now, a lot of the assets that you had for 10 years or 15 years that would need to go back are actually outmoded physically. They're beta tapes, or in Miami with Univision, I had 1-inch and 2-inch tapes, and they had to be returned physically. And so you have to take a look at all of these things. So it's not just tracking a term for the asset, it's also tracking how you may have to deal with the assets when they've expired. And then another thing, obviously, that managing rights information can do is to inform users on limitations of use. So if you have third-party material in your digital archive management system, and you know that you cannot use it for promotional use, it's worth being able to tell people when they go in to look for material in your marketing dam or your promotional dam, that this cannot be used for certain types of promotional uses. And so it's helpful right off the bat to know those kinds of things.